Welcome to the Broncos Source Podcast.
I know that guy. It's Sean.
What's up, buddy?
Dude, we're back.
I know it's football season. Hall of Fame games done. We're in it, man.
It's football season. We have been MIA for a while. You guys might not remember us. I'm Mile High Mez, and this is Sean. This is the Broncos Source Podcast, your favorite podcast out of the 879,000 Broncos podcasts out there. Thank you for joining us. So, Sean, should we I guess we owe them a little bit of an explanation, right? Like,
sure.
I'm a baseball coach, okay? So, I was coaching 2 teams this year, and I play baseball, and I have a lot of jobs, man. And it's hard. It was hard for me to be able to balance this and all that other stuff combined. And so you guys have probably seen me more. Excuse me. That's not good English, Sean. You guys have probably seen me more on the Rockies Now podcast, which is really kicking butt over there.
Nice.
Steven is doing a great job. Tom, shout out Tom. We're doing good stuff over there. We need to grow this one now. So now we need to get the content out there, Sean. So
stop being so busy.
Yeah, stop being busy, stop making excuses, and start talking about arguably our favorite sports team out of them all, the Denver Broncos, right?
Oh, for sure.
So, Sean, there's been a lot of stuff this offseason, a lot of hype surrounding the Broncos. A lot of people crowning them AFC West champs. A lot of people comparing Bo Nix to Joe Montana for whatever reason. Just a lot of things going on. I think it's mainly just people like to hear themselves talk and want to make content. That would make more sense to me. But what's one thing that you've been seeing this offseason, Sean, that has just gotten your attention or just gotten you super ready for a Bronco season?
I mean, I'm still tired of listening to Nick Wright's opinion. I mean, that's one thing that always gets my attention, man. I don't know why that dude's such a hater, but it is what it is. But yeah, as far as attention, it's the first time since Peyton Manning was here that there was any hype whatsoever, or any expectations whatsoever. So I think it's just different because it's been so long. We went from such a long stretch of the expectation was always a Super Bowl opportunity to we don't know if our coach is going to make it to week 8. We don't know if his quarterback's any good. Quarterback's crying on the sideline. They're showing the carousel every week. It's just embarrassing, man. So to go from the last decade of sadness to, people saying I've seen people say the Super Bowl's the ceiling and, Bo Nix is going to be X, Y, and Z. Like you said, he's going to be Joe Montana. He's going to be this. He's going to be that. It's just nice to have the team that you root for be relevant. It's cool. It's a breath of fresh air for sure.
I am one of those people, Sean, that can get easily annoyed online. And so the Nick Wright stuff, obviously, but honestly, the hype is not sitting well with me right now. I love that people are talking about the Broncos. I want the Broncos to be good. I mean, that's all we ever want, right? Is for the Broncos to be good. But Sean, last year the Broncos won? They won one game against a team with a 500 or above record. So I think maybe we need to pump the brakes a little bit. I don't want to be like a negative Nancy or anything like that, but if we can be realists for just a moment here, what did the Broncos do last season to earn this, this talk that they're going to be the AFC West champs and that they can go to the Super Bowl and all those things, which I love and I would love to see. But if we're looking at it from just a realist standpoint, what puts the Broncos in that position, in your opinion?
Well, to start, it's a playoff berth, right? And I think that the fact that we had no expectations and everybody was talking about how horrible we were going to be and that Bo Nix was not the guy and X, Y, and Z, to go from, what was our win total last year? I think it was 5.5, maybe. I think was the preseason odds.
Yeah.
So to go from literally zero expectations, to be a lottery pick. I know it's not an NFL thing, but to go from that being what your expectation is to going to the playoffs and really having an opportunity to probably, I mean, we kind of backed in. I think that was one of the frustrating parts as we kind of got to the tail end of the season. But, you know, we had an opportunity to really make some noise and we kind of limped in and, maybe that's rookie quarterback stuff. Maybe that's, coach and him not on the same page. Maybe that's because we don't like to run the football. Whatever those reasons, ended up being at the end of the season. So I think that's where it stems from is just that the total lack of expectations to, the mountaintop, which is the playoffs. I know you're not climbing Everest and winning the Super Bowl, but to be in the playoffs is no small feat in the NFL. And I think that's just, it's really what it is, man. Once you're in the playoffs, people think you're legit, and when you make the playoffs out of one of the toughest divisions in football, I think that also says something as well. Cause you're going up against a legit team every single week. This isn't the AFC East where Josh Allen just runs over 6 games a year and you just get these freebies left and right. We actually have to play, some football teams for the most part. So I think that's a lot of it. I mean, it's a long-winded answer, but I think that's really kind of what it boils down to.
Yeah, too long-winded there, Sean.
We haven't talked in forever, man. I got to get it all out.
Yeah, you got to get it out. You got to get it out. So I think I'm like just trying to protect myself, honestly, and just saying I don't want to get too excited here about the Broncos, even though I'm like giddy inside. Obviously,
she's hurt you too many times.
She's hurt me too many times. She has.
Yeah.
But every football fan can relate to this, right?
For sure.
You want to buy the hype about your favorite football team, but will you? Do they deserve the hype? Those are things that I've been thinking about recently. And Sean, honestly, if we're talking about it, and again, people, I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy. I'm just trying to look at this from not an objective point of view, but from a point of view of, I guess, realism is probably the best term here, Sean, but correct me if I'm wrong. My biggest concern with the Broncos this year, though, and they didn't address this room at all in the offseason, is the wide receivers. So Troy Franklin, is he going to take the next step? We don't know. Pat Bryant, is he really anything to write home about? I don't think so, personally. I think he's slow and he's a decent route runner, but he's not the explosive wide receiver that we need to add. We have him. We have Vele already. You know what I mean? So Franklin and Mims are going to have to ball out this year. I don't think Cortland Sutton's a number 1 receiver. I think he's a very good number 2 receiver. And I love that he's hung around with the Broncos and, stuck it through the bad years and gotten paid and all that stuff. But Sean, if we are being honest with ourselves, the Broncos do not have a number 1 receiver. Do we agree or disagree?
I agree. Yeah. I think we've kind of always agreed on the Cortland Sutton thing. Love him to death. So happy that he's got a contract and he's still here. But I do agree that he's probably more of a 2 in most situations for sure.
Yeah. So what are your concerns about the receiver room, particularly? I guess we can get to the other rooms here in a second, but about that room. So let's say that Cortland Sutton's your 1. Right? And maybe Marvin Mims takes a step back from last year, or maybe Peyton chooses not to feature him as much because we know Sean Payton is an enigma when it comes to using certain players. What does the Broncos season look like if this wide receiver room does not step up? If Cortland Sutton drops the ball a lot, right? Marvin Mims is not getting open. Cortland Sutton's not getting open. We're not converting on third downs through our receivers. What kind of season are the Broncos going to have if this wide receiver room doesn't step up? If Troy Franklin doesn't, improve and things like that? What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, probably no better than we did last year. An early exit type thing.
Yeah.
But I think the way I look at this wide receiver room is it's very similar to the Packers maybe a few years ago, where you have you just have a bunch of really young, solid guys, and you don't necessarily know who that one's going to be, and maybe he's not on the roster. But I know we talked about this before we got on, and you're not a big camp hype guy, but there's a ton of camp hype for Pat Bryant. I was reading some stories earlier today that, I guess Riley Moss has just been killing it in camp, and Bryant cooked him for this beautiful 15-yard route to the house today. So, there's some good things. They're saying all the right things, and you would expect, but again, it's camp hype. But I think, Vele is a solid receiver. I think Bryant's going to be a solid receiver. I think Franklin's going to be a solid receiver, and I think Sutton's going to be a solid receiver. Can teams cover 4 if Sean Payton spreads this thing out? We've got Evan Ingram. RJ Harvey is turning heads, it sounds like. So I think we'll be okay. I don't think we'll be okay wins the Super Bowl, which means somebody's going to have to do something that we don't expect, a la Bo Nix last year. So the opportunity's there, right? Somebody has, everyone's just going to assume Courtland Sutton's the number 1. He's most likely going to take the number 1 corner when they play that, which gives these other 3 or 4 guys an opportunity to become that one over the course of Courtland Sutton's contract, when he truly kind of tails off and he's just a possession receiver, or he's a situational receiver or something like that. So I think there's a window here. I think we've got some pieces, and if we don't, that's probably what our first pick is next year, wouldn't you think?
I thought that was going to be our first pick this year, and the Broncos pivoted. The Broncos never pick who I think they're going to pick. They just always surprise. So I don't know. I'm a little disappointed in the Broncos not addressing that room in the offseason. And I'm not saying they had to go out and sign T. Higgins to, a ridiculous contract. I wouldn't want that guy in our locker room. Stephon Diggs, absolutely not. But, who else? Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin was available, right? That would have been a nice, well, kind of, yeah.
He had
that
a
would have been a nice addition.
And he stayed home, so
that
I don't
was
think he was really available.
That was the Patriots, I think it was. It didn't end up being the Broncos. But yeah, I guess you get what I'm saying. I just feel like the Broncos, I don't know if they even tried to upgrade the room in free agency or what, but very clearly, in my opinion, the biggest weakness on this team is the wide receivers, and it is not even close because they are super deep in the backfield. They're really good at linebacker. They're really good on the defensive line. They have a lot of running backs now. They got pretty good tight ends with Ingram and Troutman. Although Troutman's good as a backup. He's not. If he's the starter, then we have a different conversation. But what about – so for me, the same issues are going to exist this year, right? Sean Payton is still Sean Payton, and he's a good coach, Sean. But if we don't settle on a primary running back and we're just going with this hot hand stuff and we're giving up on the run game early in games and things like that, what kind of season does that also lead the Broncos to? Are you thinking same, worse? What does that look like for you? Do the Broncos, does Sean Payton finally need to have a primary running back? Or are you okay with him shuffling through these 3 guys, Estime, McLaughlin, and Harvey?
Well, don't forget about Dobbins.
And Dobbins, sorry.
I don't, from everything that I mean, it sounds like Estime is going to be lucky to make this team, as far as those things are concerned. I mean, RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins, in my opinion, are just where it needs to be, unless there's an injury or, somebody needs a blow. Obviously, McLaughlin can come in and, take some of those Marvin Mims type backfield plays. I don't think he needs to be used more than that, but what Sean Payton's obsession is with him that drives me nuts. But, I think, you and I are both huge Javonte fans, but I think after the injury, the writing was kind of on the wall. So,
yeah.
If RJ Harvey can be the feature back, and we know what J.K. Dobbins can be when healthy, So if he doesn't have to take the full load, I expect the running game to be better. And I think Sean Payton will utilize it more when he has it. But again, look at Alvin Kamara. He's never rushed for 1,000 yards. So this is just kind of Sean Payton's MO. He's always got, you can have a Hall of Fame type of back like Alvin Kamara. Maybe he's not there because he just doesn't get the numbers because he's always split time. You know what I mean? So I think if you have a back of that caliber and you're not willing to ride him like a workhorse, it's just never going to happen. This is going to be what the Broncos are. And I hope that RJ Harvey and J.K. Dobbins are a significant upgrade over Audric Estime and Javonte Williams and, whoever was on the field of the 19 running backs that touched the field last year. So I do think it's going to be better. But to answer your question, if it's not better, I don't know, man. The AFC is so good. There's so many teams that are in the wild card hunt, and things change every year. To your point about like it's our year, that Cowboys mentality and the joke that always is that
Raiders
this is our
too.
this is our year. It's just the AFC is so stacked, man. So you just really can't slip up. But I think we're going to be okay there. I don't think that's where my concern is. So, I don't know if you want to answer that too, but my concern is that the health in the linebacker room, man. It seems like every day there's a story about one of these dudes, nothing major yet, knock on wood, but there's a bunch of nagging stuff on guys that tend to have nagging injuries. So, that middle linebacker room with dudes coming off injuries and dudes that are perpetually hurt, that's my concern, man. That's what it's been an Achilles heel, if there's any, for this defense for a long time. And some of these camp things are starting to get me worried with Greenlaw and Singleton and one of the other guys just got hurt last week too. It's going to be out for a handful of weeks. I'm drawing a blank right now, but just to hear that so early in camp is my biggest concern.
Arguably, Dre Greenlaw is the biggest piece to the defense, besides obviously Surtain, because he changes the game for the Broncos when it comes to being able to cover tight ends, right? Which they have not been able to do since Danny Trevathan, really, right? And Brandon Marshall. So his health is super, super important to the Broncos, in my opinion. He's one of those guys, too. Not only will he cover the tight end, but he'll be able to penetrate the line and stop the run, right? And that's something that the Broncos obviously struggled with last year, too. And the Bills just absolutely roasted them on the ground in that playoff game, right, as we remember. So it leads me to my question, Sean. Are the Broncos worth the hype?
Yeah, I mean, what are we talking about? I mean,
Super Bowl hype, winning the AFC West.
They have the best defense in the NFL. And so are we talking 10 of the 11 guys are, at full strength? We have, PJ Locke as a backup safety now.
That's incredible. Yeah.
And our corners with Jahdae Barron now, we've got guys that would start on other teams playing in nickel packages and in special coverages and things like that. We have an embarrassment of riches on this team. We've got young guys that are coming in that other teams would rely on for snaps. They're not even going to see the field, man, because this defense is just too stacked and too good. So while I say it's a concern, I just have to find one. I feel like, you know what I mean? We're kind of beating a dead horse on offense with the receivers and the running backs, but I think Bo Nix is going to take I think he's not going to be a sophomore slump, man. He's going to continue to build. And I think the biggest piece of that is he's not 22 years old coming fresh out of college. He has the game experience in college at big time universities. He came in here last year and he proved it again in one of the most difficult divisions in football with weak skill positions. We've said it over and over and over again for 18 weeks last year, and we're kind of opening the season with it. I do think they're worth the hype. And the crazy thing is there's still a ton of people picking the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl, yet the Broncos are still in the mix. which is, for people to have that feeling, and you're saying that the best team in the NFL is in your own division, yet there's another team that could threaten to go to the Super Bowl. I think that's a huge feather in our cap, because we could easily get overlooked as we have because of the Chiefs' dominance and their expectations. But the fact that people still think that we're in it, I'm on, man. I'm on the train. I see the playoffs. We had our predictions when we were here last. I'm in, dude. We're making the playoffs. We're winning a game in the playoffs this year. We'll see, what the team's health situations are is all encompassing in the AFC as we get closer.
So speaking of Bo Nix, Sean, something that I've been wanting to talk to you about, and obviously we haven't talked for a long time, but how important is it for the Broncos to be able to effectively spread out that money and win now, build the team now before they have to pay Bo Nix? Because we've seen Patrick Mahomes, right? We saw the success, and then he got the $500 million contract, and now they kind of just piece together their wide receiver room as best they can, and they're nowhere near what they used to be in the early days of their dominance. So how important is it for the Broncos to build this team now, especially with this offensive line, just like right in the prime of their careers, most of them, right? Or a couple of them at the end of their careers with Bowles and McGlinchey. But this offensive line is ready to win now, right? So the defense is ready to win now. So what do you think of that? How important is it? Do the Broncos need to get to and win a Super Bowl in the next 2-3 years before they pay Bo?
Absolutely. And I think the model is the Legion of Boom and how Russell Wilson won. I mean, this is almost the exact same thing, right? You put all your chips into the defense. You take a lot of that necessity for him to be perfect off the table immediately, because you're going to threaten teams. Teams are going to have to come in here and try to find, so how you going to score 17 on this team every week, week in and week out? How many teams are going to be able to do that? And that's the real question. If Vance Joseph continues to make the steps that he has, that could potentially have him being a head coach candidate again next year, if he continues to take those steps with this defense, they're going to be a real problem in the AFC. And if Bo Nix is as good as he was last year, or maybe just incrementally better, I think that they're going to make some noise when it comes time for the playoffs. But this is only year 2, so first round pick. So in theory, you got him for 5 years. Probably give him a contract after 4. This is the time. Next, we probably got 1 more year of spending. And don't forget, we are still a little bit handcuffed by the Russell Wilson deal. So we could be better than we are now from a team perspective. And we're about to get over that. We don't have any draft picks that we've lost, or major draft picks to trades. We don't have all the dead cap money, and the situation's good. So we're about to be, maybe not this year, but the 2 following years are an extremely crucial window for us to draft well, so that we can, not have to worry about that, and, just have a complete fall off and have to trade everybody because we don't have any money once we pay Bo. So we have to draft well, but we have 2 years. We can bring in high dollar free agents on short-term deals and try to make a run at this thing.
I agree with you. I think that Bo's probably going to, if he ascends, right, we're probably going to pay him within the next 2 years, right? And you see these deals happening earlier than they used to. We're not waiting till after that 5th year option, right? We're getting to that 3rd year, 4th year agreement with these quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, and even quarterbacks like him that haven't warranted any sort of contract extension whatsoever. That's been happening a lot sooner, right? But the good thing with the Broncos is now Zach Allen is extended. Surtain is extended, right? Greenlaw and Hufanga are brand new. Evan Ingram's here for a couple of years. Cortland's going to be here for as long as he's going to be an effective receiver, right? So the Broncos have put themselves in position here. I think Garrett Bowles also extended last season, correct?
Yeah, I think
like towards the end.
he tacked on like a couple years or something on the back end or something.
Towards the end of last season, I believe it was. So they have put themselves in an advantageous situation here. They really have. But speaking of Bo Nix, when we're talking about that topic, Sean, what are your concerns or where do you land on, we've seen quarterbacks struggle in their second year. CJ Stroud just last year, right? He was terrific in the playoff game at home against the Chargers. There was a little bit of a sophomore slump there, right? And we did see Bo Nix struggle against the blitz last year, leaving the pocket too early, things like that. Rolling out to his right by default and just having to get rid of the ball and things like that. And obviously, we want Bo to use his legs, but not to the extent where he's going to injure himself, right? So to get out of the pocket, to extend plays, to run for a first down and third down, that kind of stuff. But are there any concerns on your side, Sean, about a sophomore slump with Bo Nix?
Yeah, I mean, and CJ Stroud's a good example, right? Because he was so good in his rookie year. But I think the difference is we have a better offensive line. I mean, the fact that the Texans completely blew up their offensive line after last year really tells you how they feel, what the problem was. I mean, when you ship your left tackle out of town at a big name, big price tag left tackle like Laramie Tunsil, and you ship him out of town, you don't believe that they were getting it done. And then, Tank Dell's injury and Stephon Diggs' injury, I think it was less about CJ and more about the team. So what you brought up about the receivers, of course, there's the potential for that. But I think our offensive line puts us in a better situation. And our defense puts us in a better situation, even though they have a great defense too. I know Stingley's probably number 2-ish behind Pat Surtain, and D'Amico's a great coach too. So, I don't want to take too much, away from them, and CJ did struggle, so there's obviously a concern there. But again, I mean, Bo's 25 years old. He played like 50 games in college, So CJ, I think he played 2 years in college. Really,
as a starter, I believe.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And so, I think it's a little apples and oranges. I think the Broncos have put him in a really, really, really good situation, which is maybe the perk of not being the number 1 overall pick. You don't get drafted to these teams that have nothing. So, I don't see it, maybe statistically it could be not as good, but I think as a whole, as a team, I think we're better. I think we're better on paper, and that's why we're getting the expectations that we're getting. So I think that regardless, unless he's just awful, which I don't foresee, I don't see that far of a drop off, because I think the team is going to uplift him and come with him, as opposed to him having to try and carry this team like CJ had to last year with all the injuries.
I was just going to bring that up, Sean. I don't think that Bo Nix is quite there, where if he had to carry this team, if there's 4 injuries on defense, you're missing your top running back, top receiver kind of thing, top tackle, I don't think he's quite that guy where he can just carry a team there. And that's not disrespect to Bo. That's just that's a very rare thing. That's a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers in his prime kind of thing, right? So and I'll tell you mine after you tell me yours, what is your biggest concern about where Bo Nix is as a quarterback before this season starts? What is an area of improvement or something that kind of scares you when it comes to Bo Nix right now?
I don't know, man. I don't really have one that was glaring to me, and I think I try to push maybe some of the stuff, because I think that Sean Payton would be more of my concern, and keeping the handcuffs on him too much when he doesn't need them, because I think that's why when we saw the things that we didn't really care for from Bo Nix early on, I think we're maybe less about him and about the training wheels that the organization had put on him. So I think if you let him be him and do what he does, get him out of the pocket, he's got a strong arm. We saw the throws to Marvin Mims and the accuracy deep down the field. Those things are just, you can't teach a lot of those things, man. That's just, you're just a dude when you can do that kind of stuff, man. So I'm more concerned with what the play calling will do to Bo than I am what Bo will do himself, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, and I didn't look them up before we came on tonight. But I do know that teams had success blitzing him, right? And obviously that is a challenge when it comes to playing quarterback at any level. Passing against the blitz, reading the blitz, knowing where it's coming from, knowing where it's not coming from, things like that, knowing the disguises. So a lot of quarterbacks these days, well, elite quarterbacks anyway, like Joe Burrow, they excel against the blitz, right? If you blitz him, you're going to get cooked, right? That's just how it happens. I think teams will come after Bo Nix this year and try to make him show that he can pass against the blitz. Again, I don't remember the numbers, but I don't think they were very good last year. Although he did make that amazing play against the Bengals on a blitz, I believe it was, on fourth down to tie the game, that touchdown throw to Marvin Mims, which when he made that throw, I mean, I feel like he just arrived, right? Like, it's like, okay, this is a guy. This is a guy who can make plays in big, big games, and he just knows how to win. And that play was just incredible. I don't know how that I don't know how it fell complete. I don't know how he got the ball there. That was just an incredible play. So I would say that I'm wanting to see how he reacts against the blitz, and is he stepping up in the pocket or is he leaving the pocket too early? That kind of stuff. Obviously, he's an improvement from Russell Wilson in every single way.
But to your point, though, right? Defenses have to, like, you have to blitz him. Like,
yes,
you can't. You may not score today.
He'll pick you
apart.
You
got to get the ball out of his hands. You can't let him pick you apart. Yeah. He's going to have to see it, because if I'm a defensive coordinator, regardless of what his numbers are, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think, and I agree with you too on the Sean Payton thing, and we've had these talks, Sean, and we will have them again this year. Like, what was this guy thinking? Like, what are we doing here? I think he's a good coach. I really do. I think he's an egomaniac, though, and I think that he sticks to his guns too much, and it gets him burned sometimes. And that's just a live and die, live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing with Sean Payton. So, based on what you just said, your biggest concern with Bo Nix is Sean Payton, right? What is your biggest concern with Sean Payton himself?
Well,
is it the Bo Nix thing?
No, I mean, to me, it's like all week we talk about running the ball, and then you abandon the run so damn fast that it's like, now it's on Bo. And so if things don't go right, that's where the things can potentially get out of control, right? And so, like, you have to be able to run the ball. The good teams run the ball. Isaiah Pacheco runs the ball. James Cook runs the ball. Saquon Barkley runs the ball. The teams that you are expecting to be in the AFC and NFC championships, those types of teams run the football, and they're good at it.
J.K. Dobbins last year. J.K. Dobbins, Lamar.
Derrick Henry. Yeah, we just can't abandon that. Like, but it does make you, I'm not like a Sean Payton historian, but like, why does Drew Brees only have one Super Bowl? I think the main answer is it's Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, but there's also a coaching element or whatever it may be, because some of those Saints teams were really, really good. So, I don't want to, I think he's a great coach too. I'm not trying to, down on anything, but that was my biggest thing. Like, we cannot abandon the run as early and as often as we did last year. It's not smart. It's not the best recipe for a success season long, really.
Well, and we've seen this, Sean, right? So, and we've talked about this before. There is a progression here, right? You come in, you try to turn the Broncos around with Russell Wilson. It doesn't work. Okay. So the next step is you get your own quarterback in. He did that successfully. The next step after that is you go to the playoffs. They did that successfully, right? And they did that in one season. So that is outstanding. Then your next step is to win the division, right? And then to make a deep playoff run, and then to win the Super Bowl, right? So what I think people get caught up in with Sean Payton, and rightfully so, I'm not saying they're wrong. I think they get caught up in, well, he's turned the Broncos around so fast, and he has, right? But that's going to wear thin. It's going to get old if you turn the Broncos around, and then there's not a Super Bowl appearance here in the next, what would you say, 2 or 3 years, Sean? Because it's like he rebuilt the Broncos quickly, but what did he build them into? They're not Super Bowl contenders. We haven't won a playoff game. We haven't made a deep playoff run, right? So there's a progression here. So now there are expectations, and those expectations have to be met. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously coaches that are kind of always like that, right? Like, I think that was a big concern with Mike Malone before the Nuggets got over the hump. And, I think that's, people have talked about Wade Phillips in that manner. And they there's just a lot of coaches that are like that are, they're really great at taking you from the basement and making you relevant, but they just can't get that. They just can't win the Super Bowl. They can't win the big game. They can't get over that hump. Whatever those reasons are. So, yeah, I mean, the tough part is I think, this is very reminiscent to what John Elway had to go through with Dan Marino and Jim Kelly. And there's all these, the AFC is just so stacked, dude. It's like, you got to get through Mahomes, and you got to get through Lamar, and you got to get through Josh, and you got to get through Joe. Like, dude, that's an every year thing. And they're all in their 20s. Like, it's so while I agree with you, yes, there's definitely, I think, a rush timeline on that. I don't think that I would give up on him in 3 years, given the AFC situations. But yes, it's got to at least look like there's an opportunity for us to be there and to get in there. And obviously, as a fan, like, we're still going to be upset in whatever way you get upset, I guess, pissed, sad, whatever, if you're not making that game when the season ends. But I don't think that, given the landscape of the AFC, that I would jump off that quick.
So, Sean, one thing that I want to touch on before, and you made excellent points there. I know it's late and you got to get to bed, and I'm a little tired myself from the day that I had. But, Sean, something that I want to touch on, and I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm trying to look it up right now. Do you remember our record at home last year?
Not offhand, no. I'd have to count the games, but no.
I think we only lost 2 games at home. I think it was the Chargers and the Steelers. Remember, the Chargers were up on us like 23-0, and then we came back late in the fourth quarter, and then the Steelers, we just could not score. Just couldn't score. So what I'm getting at, Sean, is in order for the Broncos to win this division, right, they have to get back to home dominance. And we haven't seen teams like fear coming to Denver and playing the Broncos in a long, long time. But that used to be a thing, right? If you were coming to Denver, you weren't winning. It doesn't happen.
Yep.
So we were looking at the schedule this year. We got some tough opponents coming in. The Broncos probably need to be 7-1, 8-1 at home to win the division. What are your thoughts on that? Because that road schedule on paper looks pretty tough. Eagles, Texans, Commanders.
I mean, you got to hold home court, right? I mean, that's just kind of how it is in every sport. You have to be a certain percentage at home, and unfortunately, that's magnified by the division that we played in. The NFC North, the AFC West. Those are just divisions where you drop a couple home games, you drop a couple division games, and it's out of reach like that. So, yeah, I mean, we have to have them, and that's just going to make your life easier and allows you to let go of a road game that maybe you shouldn't or whatever it is and still stay relevant. So,
like the Jags or something.
God, I hope not. But, holding home field and really making it an impossible place to play as it always has been, between the altitude and the weather and the crowd, and there's just so much to Mile High and those types of things, man. one of the best places to play football in the world, man.
Absolutely. There's no question about that. And Bronco fans are chomping at the bit, just like you and I are, to get the season started. And don't get us wrong, we're not sitting here saying anything negative about the Broncos. We're not saying that they're not worth the hype. I think it's okay to ask the question, right? Are they worth the hype? Are they that good? Should people be dethroning the Chiefs? In my opinion, if the Broncos were on this run where they had made, what was it? The Chiefs had made 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls or something like that.
I think that's right.
If the Broncos had that and they had won the last 11, 8 to 11, something like that, division championships in a row, I would be sitting here saying, until they're dethroned, there's nothing to talk about. And so I'm not going to be a hypocrite here and say, oh yeah, Broncos are better than the Chiefs. I just can't do it. So I will say, until the Chiefs are dethroned, there's nothing to talk about. You have to go out there and prove that you're better than the Chiefs. We can't just say we're better than the Chiefs on paper and in the preseason and call it good, right? So we're going to see how bad the Broncos really want to win and what their expectation level is for themselves, because the Chiefs are not going to roll over and hand them the division. And the Chargers are not going to roll over and hand them the division. And the Raiders are not going to be some walkover game this year. They're just not. Pete Carroll knows how to coach against the Broncos. He always has. And I don't think that's going to change this year. And they're getting more dangerous with Brock Bowers, and who knows if Terry McLaurin ends up there, So Ashton Jeanty too. Yeah. So you get Ashton Jeanty, Terry McLaurin, and Brock Bowers in the same offense, and all of a sudden, look out, Are they going to stop anybody? Probably not. But we'll see. But that's the thing, right? The Broncos defense looks amazing on paper. They have to go out and actually stop people. And the thing that I want to say before we get out of here, Sean, the most important thing this year is, Bronco fans, you got to understand, there are going to be games where that defense gets roasted, like the Bengals game, okay, or the Browns game. It's going to happen. 1 or 2 times a year it happens, whatever. There's going to be times when the offense can't get it going until the fourth quarter. There's going to be times when the Broncos don't show up in the first quarter at home. That's been a thing, right, with Sean Payton. They kind of have these slow starts. It's a long football season, and the football games are long. So try not to overreact in the first quarter, the first play, first drive of the season. You know how people are, Sean, this defense sucks. Can't believe they got all this high. It's like, that's the first drive of the season. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
So I know it's exciting, guys, but let's try to be as patient as possible, because football has proven us wrong over and over again. Sean, I know you have seen me look like an idiot how many times when I'm like, they're not going to win this game. This game's over. And then lo and behold, they come back and win. Or Bo Nix isn't the answer. And then look at Bo Nix, whatever it is. But I'm looking forward to it, Sean. It's better to be getting hyped than to just be being talked about as a top 10 pick for 2026. I'll tell you that. That's a good feeling, because the last, 8 years prior to this, that's all we talked about. Who's going to be the quarterback? Can we find the quarterback? Who's going to be the coach? Who even wants to play for the Broncos anymore?
Yep.
They weren't a destination team for a long time. And now all of a sudden they are back. But now that they're back, there are expectations, and we'll see if they meet them, Sean.
Yes, sir. I'm not backing off my prediction. We're still going to win this. We're going to win the division, man.
I think I believe I picked them to win the division too, right?
I think we did, yeah. Different ways, but we did, yeah.
Very different ways. Very different ways. So, Broncos fans, we will be with you after the first preseason game, which I believe, Sean, geez, it's so late and I'm so tired. I've been working like crazy. It's this coming week.
I would
You
think
don't even know.
I think everybody's playing this weekend, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, I got to check, dude. I'm sorry, Broncos fans. We just decided that we were going to get on and talk to you guys today. It's 49ers, right?
Switching gears from youth football to NFL football.
Saturday, August 9th, 6:30, Broncos at Niners.
Sweet. Here
So
we
we will
go.
be with you at some point this weekend
Yes, sir.
to talk about that game. Hopefully we're not talking about injuries or what do we need to do now because so-and-so, is out for whatever.
You
But
better find some wood to knock on.
it's football, man. People get hurt, right? Every team's going to deal with injuries except the Chiefs. Every year they're healthy for some reason. I don't understand that. Devil magic over there.
Yeah.
But we will be with you to cover the Broncos and the 49ers. I know all those other podcasts will be there too, but we got you guys. Okay. Thank you for listening. You can follow me at Mile High Mez. You can follow Sean to his house because he doesn't have his handle up. He'll be your friend anytime.
Show up.
Follow us on at broncos.source and make sure to share this podcast with your best Broncos buddies. And we'll see you soon. Thanks again. Go
See you this
Broncos.
weekend.
Trying to find. Can you end the recording?
Play us out, DJ.
My mouse is not